Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everybody. Hi. Oh, it is what time is it for you?
It's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Perfect time for a lively conversation.
Yeah,
It's the best time
yeah,
for that result, and so I'm very happy that we can be here together. Hey, I am especially appreciative of you taking the time because I know that right now there's a million other things you could be doing that are probably more higher priority since we are what like 3 weeks away from Spring Framework 7 and Boot
yeah.
4.
Stefan Nicholas just released Spring Framework 7.0.0 RC3 like a few minutes ago, so we are very deep in preparing the GA for the whole portfolio. But that's also pretty cool to be able to talk about those new features with you,
Yeah,
Sébastien.
I mean it's an exciting release, huge new generation, but it doesn't. Well, we gotta we it doesn't feel um, like there's no big. Oh, Sandra, hello, Sandra. Good morning to you. It doesn't feel like this. I remember with Spring Framework 6, we had the Jakarta EE migration, and it's like, oh, is that going to be a pain or whatever? And there's nothing like that, right? This is one of my favorite features of this release is that there's no big pain. You know, like it's just this nice, really useful release with all these great features.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we don't have to swallow big changes that we don't control, like this Jakarta migration that has caused a lot of trouble.
right,
And we have, yeah, I think there is some pretty neat features that
so
are
many good ones.
very worth to leveraging, like at portfolio level, the Spring Boot for modularization. I'm very excited about that one. The null safety, we are going to talk about that and a few others. But yeah, I expect that the migration experience will be easier for Spring developers. Maybe the most impacting one will be the Jackson 3 migration, so Jackson 2 to Jackson 3 migration.
Right.
But we have done extra effort to make that easier, like keeping the Jackson 2 auto configuration in the deprecated form to help people to gradually migrate to the new version. So hopefully, yeah, I don't expect big breakage. We keep the Java 17 baseline. We
Mm-hmm.
recommend Java 25. So that's something that is pretty important. You can stay on Java 17, but we are officially recommending Java 25 to be able to benefit of the latest improvement in terms of efficiency via Project Laden IoT cache, latest virtual thread improvements,
Can we talk about?
basically GC improvement, etc. So that's the recommended version. Spring Boot 4 and Spring Framework 7 are designed for running the best possible on Java 25 and still can run on Java 17.
Can we talk about that? The AOT stuff, the laden stuff is awesome, right? There's so much stuff there. I mean, it gets better every new release. And now they had the method handle caches, I think it was, in the new Java 25, right?
Yeah, the
They're
AOT method profiling is a new feature that Java 25 is introducing. So that's interesting because we have anticipated the AOT cache support, which was already supported via the evolution of our CDS support.
so
But now yeah,
we had app CDS support from like Spring Framework 6 and
6 dot
years
something.
ago.
Yeah.
But and then it was Java 11 that they introduced that. And then what happened? It became the AOT. It became instead of using the app CDS switches, there's now dash dash AOT, right?
Yeah. So basically, CDS was supported was for quite a long time on the JVM, but it has been just recently used, I would say, as of Java 17 as a way to really improve startup time for applications, and we are
Right.
supporting that in our previous generation. CDS is now superseded by AOT cache, which is
Mm-hmm.
basically an improved cache, like you are still having a cache for your JVM, but you are putting more stuff in it, and so it will allow to start your application faster compared to CDS. But it's not the only benefits. In addition to the faster startup, you are going to be able to have faster warm up. So you know
Oh,
that the JVM takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to fully warm up
oh,
for
warm up, not
every
startup.
methods.
Warm
It
up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
yeah, so originally, when you start, your JVM is called, and then the JIT is going to basically optimize everything and provide native code for the most used code path, and it takes some time. And one interesting characteristic of Java 25 is that it's going to be able to get the profile from a previous run in order to basically fast forward the warm-up and basically be able to warm up your JVM in a few seconds. And that's available in Java 25 LTS. So that's pretty impressive from the Java platform team to have been able to provide that. And Spring is ready for that. But that said, an important thing is that you need to do this training run. And so from my perspective, AOT cache, unlike GraalVM, for example, will be more used to optimize Java application at platform level. Like I think that basically your platforms will begin to support AOT cache to automatically optimize your Java workloads. And various companies, including ours, are working on that. And so basically, you will not optimize your application at application level. Your platform will automatically optimize with that because there is no side effect in terms of compatibility. So basically, either you optimize your application with GraalVM with some cost in terms of long build time and compatibility issues, or at some point, some platform will automatically support AOT cache with Spring Boot 4, Spring Framework 7, and then you will get some benefits without the compatibility impact. So you can optimize existing and legacy workloads, basically.
That's an amazing point. The AOT stuff is just stock standard JVM. So there's no
standard JVM, LTS.
Yeah, and and you could get some benefit even before Java 25. Obviously, Java 23 and 4 all did a good job here too with the AOT stuff. But the fact that I can just take any JVM, as long as it supports the AOT, as long as it's just open JDK or whatever standard Java, and I get this ability to improve the performance, and there's no trade-offs in terms of compatibility. The other thing
there is no trade-off, but yeah, you need to do this training run. So if your platform likely today does not support AOT cache, you will be in charge of basically doing the training run, potentially using the production instance to get the profiling data in order to create your cache. And you can do that manually with basically your CI/CD platform, with basically containers, etc. Just it's a bit of work, but it's more at infrastructure level. You don't have to change your application. It's more basically a DevOps thing.
And I remember years ago, because this is one of the things that people don't really appreciate about Java is that when it's warmed up, and that it's not for regular people like me, it's not clear when it's warmed up, because it seems like magic. But when it's warmed up, the performance of the JVM can be better than almost anything. It's just as good.
It's super fast. I keep seeing some Reddit posts saying, "Oh, I don't understand. My super low-level technology is slower than Java when the JVM is hot, etc." And people are basically surprised. Like Go is slower, other technologies are slower, and sometimes even Rust is slower. And so people keep being surprised in the ecosystem about that. That's funny. One thing that is pretty exciting is that Java 25 AOT cache support is not the end of the story. There is more benefits that are coming with basically currently AOT cache just contains the profile. In future version of Java, it will also contain directly the native code that has been created by the JIT. So you will go from 2x faster startup to 5x faster startup. You will go to 5 seconds or 10 seconds to get your JVM out to 1 second, basically. And you will get even other kind of benefits. So AOT cache is going to continue to provide more stuff, and will allow to do training run more in a more flexible way. And you may know there is also various other efforts, like there is lazy constant, previously called stable values, that are coming. There is the compact object headers that you can already enable with 25. It's available in 25. It's just a flag. It's not preview anymore. And we have measured 10% lower memory consumption with Spring application. So we just recommend with Java 25 to enable compact object headers by default, because that's good. And there is Project Valhalla, who is finally going to deliver something, null safety improvement, etc. So it's looked like the Java platform team is basically investing a lot on efficiency side for regular JVM.
Right.
And basically, this new generation, Spring Framework 7, Spring Boot 4, is prepared for that.
I love it, and the Java team, they always do this. It's like Christmas every 6 months. We get new gifts, new toys. Maybe it's like my birthday every 6 months. But I remember a long time ago we talked about, not you and me, but generally the tech community. We talked about how large organizations. I'm using it as a hypothetical. Somebody like a Google, right? They would warm up their applications because Java, when it's interpreted, is not very fast. It's interpreted. It's like Python or JavaScript or Ruby or whatever. But large organizations would use Java, but before they released it into production, they'd throw traffic to warm it up, and then they'd switch the load balancer, right? And the idea that I can now use this training run plus these AOT flags and get that same benefit without having to hit it with a million requests to force these hot paths, it's like. And the fact that it can be done in a reproducible way now is wonderful. I mean, just wonderful. We get peak performance much more quickly.
Exactly. It's very exciting. Just one thing, right now, you need to basically stop your JVM to get your profiling information.
Sure.
And basically, future version, likely Java 26, will allow to just get the profiling data while the JVM is running with a dedicated API. So it looks like the Java platform team will try to make this training run, which is the biggest constraint of AOT cache right now, more flexible to allow more use case in basically our companies. So that's promising.
Even better. Amazing. Java 25. And the compact, I've seen some incredible numbers. The compact object headers is, I don't even, it's just, they make the objects smaller. You can have more objects in the same amount of memory. That's free. That's just free.
And it improves the memory alignment, so you may get also some benefits in terms of performance. So I think all those improvements, all those efficiency performance are coming together. And basically, at some point, you will have a very much more efficient Java runtime. Like Java weak point is basically the memory consumption mostly right now compared to our technology. And so I think all those improvements together will basically provide smaller memory consumption, better memory alignment, better performance, without real drawbacks. So that's pretty cool.
I can't wait. And Valhalla, obviously, that's not here today, but people can try.
We can begin to try it. That's
new build.
Very, very new. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, and that is like, that's really cool. I can't wait for that. That's, I don't know, it'll probably be a few more years or whatever, but very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Java 25. Java 25 is the recommended version, and I love Java 25. I wouldn't, it gives me the ability to write for the first time good Java scripts, right? Which is to say a script written in Java, and no class. I can just run the source code. I don't have to compile it. It's awesome. So I love Java 25. But one of the things that the JVM does is it loads classes. And, I've always wondered, like, when Spring Boot starts up, you have that giant monolithic auto-configure jar. What about Spring Boot 4? Is there anything there to make that situation better?
Yeah, so I think this is my favorite features. Even if I work on the Spring Framework side, I think there is two big features. The two biggest features in this new generation are the Spring Boot for modularization and the null safety. And so the Spring Boot for modularization is basically splitting this big giant monolithic auto configuration that basically have a lot of condition on the class path presence, etc., to basically smaller modules. And it's hard to understand how much an improvement it is, but it's really a game changer, because you now have a strong signal by adding your dependency to say basically it's for Webflux server or Webflux client. So you don't have the common pain point that you add Webflux and basically Spring Boot is not sure if that's for the server or the client, and you need to customize some properties. So better developer experience, better predictability, less auto configuration mistakes because we have stronger signals. Instead of basically at startup scanning all the auto configuration, and basically we have a very efficient in the current generation mechanism to basically discard some auto configuration when some classes are not in the class path, but that's even better when you don't have at all to analyze them. And so instead of analyzing hundreds of auto configuration at startup, discarding most of them because the class passes, the classes are not there, you just don't have those auto configuration because only the auto configuration related to your dependencies are present. And I think that divides the number of the configuration to analyze at startup by 10, 20. I'm not sure what is the figure, but we have been measuring in our internal Spring benchmark the impact. And we see a strong improvement in terms of startup time and memory consumption because there is 10 times less auto configuration to analyze a startup. So I think there is no real drawback except maybe the migration because some package has been changed. So
yeah,
basically you can expect that all your Spring Boot classes, they have the same class name, but a lot of packages have changed, but it's really easy to migrate even if that's a breaking change. And there is no real overdrawback because you get better developer experience, strong signal for auto configuration, better efficiency, lower memory consumption. It's honestly, back in the days, I created Spring Boot to have more control on basically what you create with a more functional approach.
right.
The monolithic auto configuration was one of my main frustration. And with that new feature, I think the current Spring Boot configuration model is just very good. Like you add your dependency, you don't have false positive. It's
Right.
so much better.
The common example that we often saw was when you brought in Spring Boot Starter Web, that brought in both the web server and the REST template, and then the web client, and then the REST client more later on. And so if you wanted to build a Spring Batch application or a CLI application or a Spring integration application or something without a web server, but you wanted to call a REST service, you would have to tell the Spring Boot auto configuration to not start the server because it would start a server by default and configure a REST template, right?
Exactly. And basically, previously, the starter were just dependencies with just transitive dependencies and no classes related to that directly. And now, basically, your starter will basically bring the auto configuration in addition to the transitive dependencies. And so Spring Boot has a strong signal to detect them. And that's honestly, the Spring Boot team has spent so much energy on that. I'm very thankful that they did this huge effort. And I think that's a game changer. Yeah.
Me too. But so Spring Boot Starter Web is still there, right? But now we also have Spring Boot Starter Web MVC. If you just want
the new name of the starter web is Web MVC because we try to also they use this opportunity to be more explicit, so to have symmetry with starter web flux, starter web MVC. It's just a renaming, but yeah, more consistency also come from that change.
And then we have Spring Boot Starter REST client, I think it's called, if you just want the REST stuff, which is super good, right? Like that's what I wanted for so long is, just give me the REST client.
And speaking about that one, so one thing we did, and Brian Clausel wrote a super good blog post about that. We are deprecating REST templates, which basically we advise to replace it by REST client. It's still there, so you can migrate, no problem. But we encourage everybody to migrate from REST template to REST clients. We are providing also the related testing infrastructure. So instead of the test REST templates class on Spring Boot side, we now have at Spring Framework level a REST test client, which is basically a better replacement for test REST template. So you should be able with this new generation to fully migrate to the new HTTP client. And basically, if you are in Webflux world, you are using web client and REST web client, REST web test client, excuse me. And if you are basically in with a regular stack, non-reactive, you are going to use REST client and REST test client, and that's good. So you should migrate from REST template to this new infrastructure, basically.
Aha. Okay. So wow, there's so many cool things happening in this new release. One of the things I noticed when I upgraded, when I wrote some code with Spring Boot 4, and by the way, the new, there's snapshots you can go and start that spring.io and all that, was even though the code didn't change, I'm using JUnit 6, which is quite nice, right? Like that's nothing broke there. It just seems like it works. Did I miss something?
No, don't be afraid about JUnit 6. Indeed, the upgrade from JUnit 5 and JUnit 6 is just a drop-in replacement. It's most of the use cases. Yeah. It's not a big change like JUnit 4 to JUnit 5. It's super easy. So don't be afraid by the major version bump, it's straightforward. So just new features, no breakage expected.
Right. Love that. And the other thing I noticed is that as I was starting to create Spring Data repositories and use certain objects, I noticed that I got yellow highlighting for certain fields and generic parameters and all that. That's the nullability stuff. What's going on there?
Yeah, so that's my second favorite feature of this new major. This one I may be a bit biased because I have been working a lot on that with the wider Spring team.
Right.
And so basically, we had introduced in Spring Framework, even 5 maybe, some preliminary null safety support with the Spring nullability annotations, but it was very focused on Spring Framework API. That was partial support, not dealing with generic types, etc. Maybe Spring Data handled that, supported that, but basically other project did not. And so what we did in Spring Boot 4, Spring Framework 7, and related portfolio project is that the whole Spring team have been working on that to migrate from Spring own nullability annotation to gspecify, which is a new pragmatic standard that we have been contributing to that for 5 years now. And gspecify 1.0 is used by Spring Framework to basically annotate its API, but also all Spring projects. So Spring Security, Spring Data, Spring Boot, Spring Framework, everybody is using gspecify to provide null safe APIs.
Right.
And I think that's a pretty big deal because we have all faced with null pointer exception and production. It's basically, I don't feel very safe when I especially after working a lot with Kotlin, when I work with Java, I'm a bit in a very dynamic territory regarding to null safety, where it's almost if I was coding in JavaScript, like no explicit specification if something can be null or not. I don't have this information when I compile my project, and so I'm not very confident. And with this new null safety feature, there is two main modes for end users. Either they just consume Spring Boot 4, Spring Framework 7, and they don't do anything on application side. And so they will get warnings in their IDE that, hey, you may have a null pointer exception there, so please test that variable for null, etc.
Right,
and that's a very good benefit because there is nothing to do, just upgrade and you benefit of that.
Right.
But if you want to go to the extra mile and basically, if you want to discuss with your leadership that you can remove null pointer exception in production for real, like with your leadership, with your CTOs, they may be excited about that. You can enable checkers, plugins like null away in your application. And basically, if you annotate your application with gspecify, and since Spring is annotated with gspecify, that will basically ensure at 99% that you don't have any chance to have null pointer exception in production, which is pretty cool. Like you are basically removing the $1 billion mistake for your project.
Right.
And you are basically deploying on production with confidence that, hey, I have checked that at compile time, so there will be no null pointer exception, and I think that's pretty cool.
And that is super cool. So we have the annotations, which it's all around the Spring ecosystem, and hopefully other projects as well. I know that I saw that there's
GUnit 5 is GUnit 6 is using that. Gradle is using gspecify, and various other projects are currently migrating to gspecify. We have been surprised by the adoption in the wider ecosystem, so that seems to propagate. Yeah.
And I noticed for this to work, though, it has to be a whole ecosystem discussion, and there has to be feedback from code to production, right? So you've got your compiler plugins, the Spring Boot, Maven, and Gradle plugins, along with these gspecify, these null away plugins can give you feedback in the build, and IntelliJ gives you feedback, right? Like
exactly.
And so they are aware of these annotations and how to interpret them.
Yeah, they are aware, and the key goal of gspecify is just for annotation. So you may wonder why it took 5 years to reach 1.0, but in fact there is also a very long and very complete specification that allow all toolings to basically implement gspecify checks in a consistent way. So I don't say it's perfect today, but basically Nullaway, IntelliJ ID, and other tooling vendors are working to implement the specification in a consistent way.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool because previously you had annotation, but you had JetBrains annotation for null safety. You had annotation specific to check your framework, etc.,
Right.
find bugs, whatever. And now you have a common set of annotations, common set of specifications, and the ecosystem is working on implementing that. And basically, Java itself is working on null restricted type as part of Project Valhalla. And
Yeah.
so basically, it won't happen tomorrow. Okay, it's a lot of work, but the former lead of gSpecify is Kevin Bourillon is now working in the Java platform team on this null safety thing. So you can expect some kind of basically consistency. It will be not exactly the same, but
Right.
basically what I have seen is that the mental model and the principle will be basically quite consistent. So I think that's a good bet to migrate today your workloads on gSpecify and use null safety annotation in your application if you want to do that. And that will be a good preparation for the upcoming Java null safety when the JEP will be merged. And
Wow.
so
And that's also happening in Kotlin, right? If I'm using a Java library that has null annotations, nullability annotations in, it's a Java program, but I've annotated it with JSpecify annotations. I then link to it from my Kotlin code. Will I get the same feedback about nullability in my IDE as I would if I were using natively null specified Kotlin code?
You will, and unlike GSR305, which was the previous dormant, non-finalized solution that was used, you don't need any special flags. So Kotlin 2.1 Plus is interpreting gSpecify as native null safety, and if null safety does not match, you get error. So you get the same developer experience that if your code was written in Kotlin. And this is what happened for Spring Framework, Spring Boot, Spring Security, etc. Now, from a Kotlin perspective, it looks like Spring is written in Kotlin, even if it is written in Java plus gSpecify annotation. You don't have those platform types with exclamation mark where you don't have a kind of compatibility mode for Kotlin consuming Java libraries. You get nullable or non-null types, and you have a feeling that basically Spring is written in Kotlin. And I think this is the biggest feature for Kotlin users. They will get basically very nice idiomatic Kotlin API with full null safety. And that's quite a game changer because this is the whole portfolio. I'm not just talking about Spring Framework. I'm talking about the whole Spring team has been working, and I'm very thankful for my colleagues to suffering a bit too, because it's not just dropping annotation in a random way. It's you add your annotation, you add null away to check your code base, and basically you need to reach 0 error for your null safety consistency across the whole code base. So it's quite a lot of work.
A lot of work.
And the Spring team has done this work, and now the ecosystem can benefit on both Java and Kotlin side.
I mean, we had a Rob Winch on this show a little while ago, and Spring Security lead Rob Winch, and he was saying that the exercise was actually quite good because it forced them to clarify the semantics in certain cases around nullability. So it's actually been quite good even for us to go through this exercise.
It's good for us, and it's good for application developers because nullability basically allow to model the absence of value. It's a bit like optional, but usable for every use case. And so that's pretty cool. And that allowed us to fix a lot of bugs across the portfolio. Some of them were not reachable, but basically everywhere you need to clarify what you need to do when something is null. You need to ensure consistency between null safety across the whole code base. So we have fixed quite a lot of potential and concrete bugs across the portfolio thanks to that.
I like that. Are there other, I mean, this is a huge feature. Are there other features separate from this for Kotlin users coming in the new release?
Yeah, so for Kotlin users, there is basically, we are making the programmatic bin registration more first class. So there was a bin definition DSL in Spring Framework 6, no equivalent on Java side. And now we have the first class bin registrar SPI that allow basically Java developers to register bin programmatically with something much nicer, compatible with Spring IoT compared to what the application context initializer that was previously used. And there is a new bin registrar DSL for Kotlin developers that again has a better API that you can use with Spring IoT and native without being basically having an error like don't use programmatic bin registration with Spring IoT. It's not supported. So just better support consistency between Java and Kotlin. And so I think that's a pretty cool feature. The other big features for Kotlin, and we got so many asks for that, is automatic context propagation for coroutines. So before, if you were using micrometer or basically observability in general, when you had the coroutines, you basically lost your trace IDs, etc., and that was a nightmare. And it was complicated because that was something between Spring, micrometer, and coroutines. Spring Framework 7 is providing automatic context propagation for coroutines. That means that if you are enabling the context propagation with the related Spring Boot property, the rector propagation, it will also propagate to coroutines. So basically, you just put one property to true, and you get basically observability support for your coroutines. And I know a lot of Kotlin developers are waiting for that. So thanks for Brian Clausel, who has been contributing something related to that, and that's pretty cool.
That is, I mean, that is. What? One more thing.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was just talking to Darius just a few weeks ago, and we talked about baggage and reactor propagation, and it's nice to see it's gone even further now.
Yeah. And the other big feature is the Kotlin 2.2 baseline. So, because previously, I know some people were trying to use Spring Boot 3 with Kotlin 2. In theory, that works, but that was not fully supported. And now, basically, Spring Boot 4 and Spring Framework 7 are designed for a Kotlin 2.2 baseline that brings faster compilation, a lot of bug fixes, and basically that just very looking forward foundation that will be useful for everybody. So Kotlin 2 baseline is a big one. You get a lot of benefits from that indirectly.
Nice. You mentioned the bean registrar. That's a Spring Framework core feature, and I imagine, there for people who are. I did a video on this, and I don't think people appreciate just how good this is, because if you've come at it from, if you're like you and me and you worry about framework stuff, then there's ways to do some of what the bean registrar gives you, but it's not particularly fun. You can work with bean definitions maybe, or you can work with the application context initializers, which sit outside of the regular component model. You can't import them and all that. And then, of course, you have this whole other mess related to AOT. And so having this new thing where it's just a functional DSL to register objects, to work with objects, to register beans, and it works consistently across JVM and AOT with GraalVM and that kind of thing. Super nice. And also, I imagine you coming from the Spring Foo world, is this kind of one of those things you've been building for over these years?
Yeah, it's this bin registrar thing is a very interesting foundation for the future. Like, people preferring to use programmatic API to register their bin instead of add configuration add bin will be happy about that, but that was previously possible. What is very exciting is that in the future, it could be usable by the Spring Portfolio projects or applications to create their own DSLs, to create their own more powerful mechanism to register bins, because you can use for loops, you can use if statements, I have shared with Rob Winch, the Spring Security lead, the prototype of a Spring Security DSL that would be based on this bin registrar thing. Because like you said, either today we are using declarative model with add configuration add bin, but that's static, like you are declaring in a static way some bins, or you are using very low level bin definition stuff like Spring Security and Spring Data need to do, because we are Spring experts, but there is not something in between. And I think providing a more high-level API compatible with Spring IoT, usable by both the ecosystem and the Spring Portfolio to create their own DSL or create their own mechanism that will conditionally register bins based on some properties or something else, use for loops or do dynamic stuff. I think it could allow to create more dynamic Spring application than today's. Typically for e-commerce use case or CMS, that could be pretty cool.
Well, yes, and also I think you know, if you have a bean registrar class somewhere and you've got to register 3 or 4 beans, you know, you can either write 4 methods with an @bean and a return value and a method name and a parentheses and return new foo, return new bar, or just say, you know, registry.registerBean foo.class, and that's one line. You know, it's actually less code too, so you get more flexibility, and in the 80% case, it's actually less code as well, which is
that less code, and there is very good integration, unless the previous application context initializer solution. It's integrate very well with your existing add configuration. So basically, you have your add configuration or your Spring Boot application class. You just add @import mybean registrar, and that's it. It will be recognized automatically, etc. So it's just a better integration into the current. Unlike Spring Foo, which was quite extreme, like everything functional and does not integrate with add configuration world. This bean registrar thing is a better way, compatible with add configuration, @bean, etc. to integrate a subset of your beans created in a programmatic way, and it's less disruptive, and I think that will be much more usable and actionable on concrete projects.
Hybrid. And
hybrid, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that it works with, I mean, I spend a lot of time, I'm sure I know you do as well, I spend a lot of time in the GraalVM world, and one of the things that was sort of weird with with bean definitions, you're dealing with strings and properties, you know, it's reflection, right? So that's one thing. And then with the application context initializers, you've got this possible duplicate registration that you have to worry about. So it's just very, with this, it just works. And I love GraalVM, so this just makes me feel much happier. Are there other things people should be aware of for GraalVM users?
Yeah, so the GraalVM, so on GVM side, the baseline is still Java 17, and we recommend Java 25. On GraalVM, we are introducing a GraalVM 25 baseline. So that's a big move. The goal is to basically, I mean, GraalVM 25 is introducing a new reachability metadata format that will provide better debuggability that is really built for the future to help to solve the big compatibility issues that are currently preventing GraalVM to be more successful. And so GraalVM 25 is supporting both the old and the new metadata formats. Spring Framework 7 is generating the new data formats only. So, and the GraalVM reachability metadata is going to switch to this new format only. So basically, we have decided to, basically, if you upgrade to Spring Boot 4, you should use GraalVM 25 plus. You will get the new data format. You will get better debuggability, like when you are missing some reflection stuff, you will have a very clear message that will say, hey, you just need to add that, etc. So just better maintainability, compatibility, and I think that GraalVM 25 baseline will be a good thing. And if you have already do the effort to migrate to move from the GVM to GraalVM, upgrading from 17 on 20 or 21 to 25 is not a very hard move. And also the GraalVM team, we may have heard there has been basically some changes on GraalVM side recently, and so basically the GraalVM team is going to focus on LTS version now. So they are going to focus on GraalVM 25 and release 25.1.2.3. So it's really focused to basically move Spring to the new GraalVM release scheme that we have done as of today, and we are doing that in collaboration with them, and I think that's pretty cool.
That is super cool. I mean, I love GraalVM. I love it. I love the JVM, but I mean, GraalVM also solves different problems that I quite like.
Yeah, I mean, we are collaborating with both sides. We have very close collaboration with the GraalVM team, with bi-weekly meetings. We have very close collaboration with the Java platform team on Project Aiden and IoT Cache, and we are just providing the best on both sides. And it's up to you, basically, Spring developers, to decide which one is the better fit for your use case. In terms of other big features, so Jackson 3 is going to basically is a new Jackson version that we support. It provide basically just better API, better performance. The people are going to use JSON mapper instead of object mapper, so something specialized for JSON. The builder is the mapper is now immutable, so you need to use your builder to configure your Jackson stuff, and then you create a mapper with that. So various changes that I have been describing in my recent blog posts. We are providing helps for the migration. So we are providing a Jackson 2 compatibility mode with Jackson 3 Spring Boot for support. So
Okay.
I think that's pretty cool. We are providing in a deprecated form still the Jackson 2 configuration if you really need to keep using it, but just use it temporarily because Jackson 2 support is deprecated for removal. So at some point we will remove it, but we want to let people the time to migrate, and so Jackson 3 is just super good. There is a package change. So if you are using directly Jackson classes, you will migrate from the com.faster.xml.jackson to tools.jackson. So there is a package breaking change, but otherwise we try to help.
In theory, though, a developer could actually have both on the class path and they wouldn't conflict.
Totally, and so that's something we have been working with Tatu, the Jackson lead, because originally it was not really possible. You can use side by side Jackson 2 and Jackson 3, and that's important because some dependencies of the ecosystem are going to continue to use Jackson 2, and that's okay. When I say Jackson 2 support at some point will be removed, it's because basically Spring owned Jackson support is currently providing Jackson 3 support and Jackson 2 support in the deprecated form in Spring Boot 4. At some point, the Jackson 2 support will be removed at Spring level for converters, auto configuration, etc. But dependencies can still continue to use Jackson 2. We are providing Jackson 2 dependency management, etc. So it will take some time for the JVM ecosystem to migrate from Jackson 2 to Jackson 3, and we try to make that migration pretty smooth. Otherwise, big features, we have resilience features. So we have been moving the features that were in Spring Retry, a different project, into Spring Framework. So add concurrency limits, add retryable, retry template are now Spring Framework core capabilities that are used within the portfolio. So I think that's another big features. API versioning also in control.
API versioning is a huge feature. So you can have the same endpoint and select
different versions.
Yeah. Did we upgrade the Jakarta EE baseline?
I think so. Let me check.
I know we have a new JMS client, which is kind of interesting.
So we have basically, we are introducing a Jakarta EE 11 baseline. And so we are basically leveraging Servlet 6.1, GPA 3.2, bin validation 3.1, etc. So we are basically raising the baseline, but again, there is no package changes, etc. So nothing comparable to Spring Boot 3 migration where we had to change everything.
Don't freak out. It's fine. It's okay.
So we refine the baseline, but nothing too breaking for you upgrading, I think.
I love it. What about virtual threads? Like virtual threads are one of my favorite features. Is that the default yet?
What is the question?
Is that the default?
No, it's not the default yet for various reasons. But so virtual thread, we have been working quite a lot on that. We are currently working on improvements that will basically be released likely in Spring Framework 7.x, so maybe 7.1 or something like that. The goal is basically to try to leverage upcoming structure concurrency improvements and virtual threads to provide streaming APIs. Like currently streaming APIs, if you want to have first-class streaming support, you need to go on reactive side. And so we would like to be able to expose in Spring Framework, basically, and also in the Spring ecosystem, streaming capabilities with virtual thread and structure concurrency. It's not as easy as it sounds because you need to provide the right abstraction, and we are currently discussing with the Java platform about that. But we are working on structure concurrency support and providing basically streaming features with basically virtual threads based infrastructure. And also we are going to work more deeply on improved performance. So basically we have a big focus on performance and efficiency. And so just on ongoing work with basically your regular Spring MVC stack using virtual thread. But right now, you still have to enable this flag to say at Spring Boot level, enable virtual thread, because there is some nuance and subtle changes, and we can't really enable it by default. Also, remember, the baseline is still Java 17. So for people using 17, they still have the basically some limitation, like the pin thread issue, etc. So I guess when we will raise the baseline to something that is basically more recent in terms of baseline, we may be able to switch virtual thread on by default. But right now, it's still a bit early. But I would advise people using Java 25 to enable virtual thread to enable compact object headers by default. Not by default, but in their application.
Right.
That makes sense, and that's very low risk now that the ecosystem is ready.
And it's free scale. It's so good. Wow, there's a lot of like API features and Spring Data and Spring Security, Spring Batch, all sorts of good stuff. But the big benefit of these new generational releases, these Spring Framework 7, right? It's the first major generation since 2022, I think. Is that right? When did we do 6? Was that 2022 or 2023? I think it was 2022.
Don't remember.
Well, that's actually pretty fast if you think about it. I mean, how long did it go from, either way, it was like 2017 was Spring Framework 5, and then 2022 or 2023, 5 or 6 years, right, before we got Spring Framework 6. Is that right? That's right. That's 5 or 6 years.
I think so, yeah.
So now here we are 3 years later, or 2 years later. I don't know.
2 and a half. I'm not sure, but it was a faster cycle also. But again, like you said at the beginning, we are not introducing huge breaking changes. We are basically providing incremental modernization of the platform, and so it makes sense to not wait too long. Also, Java 25 is so good that we need to provide a Spring generation that is really designed for it.
Right.
If again we are keeping the 17 baseline for people wanting to not upgrade. So I think that also IoT cache, etc. I mean, there is so much benefit in this Java 25 release that I really, if you are using Java 21, just don't ask a question, migrate to 25. There is no reason. I mean, Java 17 is the new Java 8, so very conservative shops will remain on Java 17. But I can really not see any reason to stay on 21.
Nope.
Maybe you want to wait a few patch updates for 25 before switching, but really 25 should be your default choice, and your current application should migrate. I think that's GC improvement, IoT cache, virtual thread improvement, so much improvement there.
I agree. I mean, I love Java 25. But what I was saying was, because we have this new generation, we can do these big cross-portfolio efforts, right? Like the nullability, right, and the modularization, and these things. I mean, we have a lot of nice APIs, but the things that are really, the baseline upgrades for GraalVM and Kotlin and Jakarta EE, and this is a once in a generation kind of opportunity, and any other big upgrades or anything like that we should know about?
The class file API is pretty cool. So basically, previously Spring was using only ASM to basically read and write low-level Java bytecode, etc. And Brian Clausel have been introducing basically for Java 24 plus, I think, because that's a Java 24 release feature, a class file API that basically that's a capability provided by the JDK itself to read the classes file, and so that means you can use very recent, like Java 26 basically experimental version, and we don't have to upgrade ASM to be able to read that. There is better performance. It is more just provided by the framework. So maybe at some point we will be able to use that everywhere. Right now we are using it in a lot of places, and in the upcoming version we will use more and more. But this class file API, so capability of the JDK to read bytecode at a low level stuff, it's at a low level. It's a very cool feature that Spring Framework is using automatically. So if you are using Java 24, Java 25, Spring will use automatically class file API instead of ASM in order to deal with the bytecode. So you don't have special flag to enable. It happens automatically. Another good reason to use Java 25, in my opinion.
Yeah. Huge.
Otherwise, big features. Yeah, I mean, GMS client, API versioning. Let me check. Now, I think this is the biggest ones. We are going to introduce, maybe one word on, we are going to introduce refinement of Spring IoT we are likely going to introduce refinement of Spring IoT to work better with Project Leiden, IoT Cache, etc. in Spring Framework 7.1 and the next generation. So the goal would be basically to, and again, it's hypothetical. I don't say we are going to do that, but we are likely going to work on that. So currently, Spring IoT has been designed for GraalVM, and it's very cool. It adapts to the GraalVM constraints, and it's doing a lot of optimization, but it's also freezing the conditions at build time, and that's not really a good fit for people deploying on the JVM. So we see mostly people using Spring IoT mostly on native side. What we try to do, and with Stefan Nicol and Jürgen Oller, we are working on that. You can check the modular Spring IoT issue that there is in Spring Framework issue tracker. We are trying to explore how Spring IoT could be basically side effect less on the JVM by doing optimization that only makes sense for the JVM IoT cache with Java 25, etc. So ideally, the target that we would like to achieve is that you will basically run with Java 25 plus, enable Spring IoT on the JVM, and there will be not the side effect that you have today. Like, you can continue to basically modify your configuration on your Kubernetes platform or whatever. Not everything is frozen at build time. So you keep a lot of benefits of Spring IoT, but you are not impacted anymore by the side effects. And basically, it would introduce a kind of JVM behavior for Spring IoT, no side effect, and you could basically enable it. And so the goal would be to combine IoT cache from Project Leiden and Spring IoT on the JVM without side effects. And so this is what we would like to explore and provide potentially in the Spring Framework 7.x generation. So not everything is provided in 7.0, but 7.1, there is a good chance that we will provide something about that. We may publish a related blog post at some point about that. So follow Spring IO.
Okay. And the other thing is, I wonder if that could play, and I don't know, you tell me, but is there any chance that there's any interplay between that feature and Crema in GraalVM, the sort of JVM in the GraalVM?
That's a very good point. So in theory, yes. In practice, we are not sure yet. So basically, we are currently there is two flavors. There is native. Everything is frozen, basically very early, very aggressive optimization. JVM, everything is super flexible and a lot of things happen at runtime. With this new intermediate mode that we primarily intend to be used with IoT cache, in theory, it could be possible to use it with native image plus Crema. So Crema is this basically new feature of native image that allow native image to be more flexible, to basically be able to interpret bytecode at runtime, etc. But it's not ready yet. So Crema is still pretty young. And basically, is it a good idea to basically blur the line on Spring side to basically have the different variant of native applications? We are not sure yet in terms of maintainability, etc. Maybe, but I think initially this modular Spring IoT or JVM flavor of Spring IoT will be initially targeting more JVM IoT cache. And we will later see if there is also some ask for that, like is Crema basically ready for first-class use? Because right now it's not yet. It will maybe take 1 year to be ready. Is there some ask from the community for a more flexible version of native or not? It remains to be seen. But it's very true that in theory this more flexible Spring IoT flavor could potentially be usable with Crema. Just a bit early to say if that makes sense, or if we need to stay on this current flavor of native without introducing different variants Not sure yet.
Well, the future looks very bright. One of the things that I love about the new Spring Data release is they have these new AOT repositories.
Oh yeah, that's a very good one, and we have So it's very cool. So basically, if you are enabling Spring AOT with your Spring Data GPA or Spring Data JDBC or Spring Data MongoDB application, Spring Data is going to basically create the repositories at build time. It's going to do the GPS scanning at build time. And so you are going to basically double the benefits of Spring AOT for your data application. So basically, the improvement you add from raw Spring application to Spring AOT, you are basically 2x the benefits with the Spring Data AOT repositories. And I think that's a very good example that with this more flexible Spring AOT usable on the JVM without side effects, it could be interesting to use the Spring Data AOT repositories optimization on the JVM in addition to native without side effect. And this is what triggers this basically work on more flexible Spring AOT. And potentially other use case could be interesting. Maybe Spring Security, maybe Spring Web Support could be able to contribute Spring AOT optimizations that are also usable on the JVM. And so I think Spring Data has basically created a path to basically let's use Spring AOT optimization, not just for native, but for some specific Spring needs. And so it applies to repositories, could apply to web, to security, to others. Maybe, we are not sure, but
wherever we're creating proxies, I mean, imagine if Spring MVC generated the web server handling, it generated a servlet from your controller, imagine, I mean, possibilities are endless,
We can explore stuff like that. We first want to introduce a side effect-less mode, and then potentially be able to use that wider in the portfolio. That's like null safety. Originally, that's just in Spring Framework, and then basically that extend to other part of the portfolio. And if there is some very interesting gain in terms of efficiency and maybe also developer experience, that would be pretty cool to explore. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Look, it's the legendary. Salut.
Hey, Stefan. We were talking about your work on basically more flexible Spring AOT for JVM usage. So yeah, not ready for 7.0, but we are working on that for
We're
the future.
dreaming out loud about the future. My friend, I know that you have taken an hour of your time, and that's an hour that we need for all this amazing stuff you're working on. So very quickly here, where can people find you on?
Yeah, so I can be found on LinkedIn. You search, Sébastien Deleuze. I can be found on basically Blue Sky, so at seb.deleuze.fr, and also on Mastodon, basically sdeleuze, and you will find me. So you can find me there, and I will publish a blog post about how to build Spring Boot for null safe application next week. And so you will be able to see basically how to benefits of this null safety effort with Spring Boot 4 and Spring Framework 7.
So cool. Yeah. By the way, I hope people are reading The Road to Spring Boot 4. I think it's called The Road to GA.
The Road to GA, and basically we are publishing a series of blog posts. So recently, the Spring Boot team has been publishing a very, very, very cool blog post about Spring Boot for modularization.
Yeah.
I have been publishing something about Jackson Freeze. There will be, there is a lot of blog posts. All the big features are detailed in this blog post. Rossen has been publishing something about API versioning also, I think. So all the big features are there. So search The Road to GA and basically Spring The Road to GA, and you will find all the blog posts. And we are continuing publishing that until we release Spring Boot 4 GA, which is November 20th. I think something like that. So it's like in 3 weeks, basically, we are releasing the GA. And so, we still have a lot of work, but honestly, we are in good shape. I'm pretty proud about the work that the team has been doing. It's look like we are ready before getting all the feedback that will come after GA, because not everybody tests the RC. So maybe one last ask. Please test the RCs. We have been releasing Spring Boot for RC1. We are about to release Spring Boot for RC2. RC2 will be very, very close of the GA. So please test Spring Boot for release candidates.
And
create
Spring
bugs,
7
reports,
RC3?
regression. What?
Spring Framework 7, the new RC, right?
Yeah, we have. So Stefan has been releasing just this morning the Spring Framework 7 RC3 that will be used in Spring Boot 4 RC2 to be released very shortly, next week, I think. So yeah, Spring Boot 4 RC2. Also, Spring Boot 4 RCs and all Spring RCs are now released on Maven Central. So you don't have to add some fancy additional repositories. Just upgrade the version, see what breaks, see if that's expected, and if that's not, create issues. Provide us feedback in order to allow us to ship a very polished GA. That would be super cool.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sébastien. It was a pleasure, as always.
Thanks, Josh.
Have a great day.
Bye.